How's it going, everybody? You're listening to the Let's Talk podcast, the show that brings you the latest in relevant and current trends and conversations about our daily living, the Bible, and also some very fun and unexpected points of view. With your hosts, Joey Santos and Brad Wilson.
Hey, welcome everyone to the podcast. Hey, Brad Wilson, how you doing?
I'm just living the dream, Joey.
You're living the dream.
Yeah.
This is our first one, buddy.
Yeah, I was really hoping that there'd be a lot of rain today and some storms, but it's not apparently rolling in.
What do you need the storms for?
Because I wanted my son's track meet canceled. I really don't want to go to it, just wait around. But sometimes you got to sacrifice.
I'm excited about it. We can just talk. Like, we talk a lot during the week. People don't know that. People don't know, like, how much we get to sit down and have conversations about life, about the church, about everything that's going on, about the message. I had an excuse before. I lead the church, the bar, right? Mm-hmm. And for a while, I could tell people, well, I don't know where they're going next after this question. Mm-hmm. I don't have that excuse anymore because we talk all the time. We're talking about the questions. We're talking about the message. We're just good. So we can now bring this to everybody.
Yeah, people may not know that you like to talk, but you like to talk. That's one of the...
Just a little bit.
If there's 7 wonders in the world, that could be the 8th wonder. So, people just don't know that.
If people only knew.
Yeah.
Like we should do a reality show. I should do a reality show. People can come see behind the scenes to work in a church.
It would be the reality show would fit with this series, Everyday Living. James.
I got the producer, Bright, on the other side of the room looking at us like, you guys are crazy.
Yeah.
But this is good, though. It's a good chance. I like this opportunity for us to have this conversation, and everybody can hear. And this is what this is going to be. This podcast is not this kind of formal conversation. It's actually very casual, like we have every day. And I don't know what's going to come out of it, but people are going to get a good taste of what we do throughout the week. You got a kid driving now, don't you?
Yeah, which may be one of the greatest things in the world because that means I have to drive less, except today, because he's got a track meet. So I have to go pick his brother up. But The great thing is with Kyle driving is he just drives, takes Ryan to school. I get to sleep in 15 minutes longer, which doesn't seem like a lot, but I mean, multiply that by 4 days a week. That's an hour right there.
That's an hour right there. You just gain an hour. That's a good math. That's a good, like you have a whole hour in a week. And you can sleep now.
With me approaching 60 years old, I need that extra hour. It's vital for me.
Now you gotta say though, the hour counts now because there has been some changes on your routine here at the church. Right, because now you're preaching every weekend.
Yeah.
So is that a lot different? Like really, like it has that changed a lot for you?
Yes. So I was talking with Lindsay this weekend, and I said one of the big changes. Someone else says I go to bed a lot earlier on Saturday because I know Sunday I have to come in, and where in the past if I wasn't preaching and I thought okay, I'm supposed to make a couple announcements, do a community meditation. Once I knew what that was, it's a much shorter time frame. So what I want to remember or recall if I'm talking, because, community meditations, I typically think that those things, if you can keep them 2 minutes or less, are good because no one's looking to me to give like another sermon, right?
Exactly.
With that, so keep it 2 minutes or less. That's less stuff for me to try to remember, recall.
Yeah.
Now, when you're preaching and that you kind of add on more to that, so I want to make sure that I'm as mentally sharp as possible.
I think that's part of the transition. For me, my personality, I like to stay busy, which is not always good. Mm-hmm. Because it's time management that you gotta have, and but I cannot just stay idle. I cannot just sit back and not do anything, unless I'm in Brazil on the beach. That's my I can sit in there all day do nothing. I know what's going on through your mind right now, but it's a podcast. I know you're not gonna say it because you're a good boy.
Yeah, that's my second middle name, good boy.
I mean, but for us, the church has been quite a transition, though.
Yeah.
It's been quite a transition. I mean, we went out of a specific model, having a lead pastor, and then we're sitting here with like a different leadership. Is a team approach, and in the midst of all that, I think our lives also have been personally impacted by this. Not necessarily the change, but the season,
Yeah.
right? The season has been impactful in our lives, our personal lives. So let's talk a little bit about that. Let's like in your personal life, how that has been impacting in your personal life, things that has changed since then.
Oh, I mean, there's been a lot of change with the schedule. So, just going places or doing different things. You get so during the week. I mean, I've been used to a certain schedule pretty much for almost 20 years, and then that's changed. That's changed significantly. So this may come as a surprise, but I like to talk and I like to make my way around the different offices. But sometimes I have to stop doing that because I've got to be more strategic with my time, knowing that I'm preaching pretty much every weekend now from the preparation and all of that. So I have to make sure that I have. We kind of talked about a little bit at staff meeting this morning. We talked about boundaries. So I got to set up some boundaries to keep me within that. And then a change with it too is with the change that's going on is interesting conversations that happen out in our community, because people will ask, "Hey, what's going on at Christ Church? What are you up to? What are you doing?" And it's a little different because how all that stuff's changed. So from a personal standpoint, being out there, I get a lot more questions from people and even people that don't go here. They just kind of wonder what's going on. Like, "Hey, how do you like these changes, et cetera, et cetera." So
I think for us, it's kind of funny. I think people, and I get that a lot of the church, the bar, from some people online, and you hit that this weekend. It's if you even look outside the church, look outside, just in the society in general. There's a lot of bad things happening.
yeah,
Like, I think coming out of a 2-year pandemic situation, which has provoked a lot of changes in a lot of our habits, things that we do, our rhythms have been changed. But I don't think we still embrace the fact that bad things are going to happen to us.
yeah,
And we hit that this weekend. We talk about. So I want us to chat a little bit, because you and I talked a lot last week about this. We worked together on the questions that we're going to ask at the church, the bar, during the message. And the one question that really hit me strong is, and hit the room, is is God punishing us? So can we dive a little bit about that? Because I want to see, like, because you really, we went back to the book of Job. I mean, look at that guy, what happened to him, everything he went through, and his faith, it was just there.
yeah.
So can we talk a little bit about this? Let's talk about, let's expand a little bit about the punishment. I mean, is God punishing us?
Yeah, I mean that's a question a lot of people ask, and I think in the terms of the answer they're looking for, does God punish us? No. Does God discipline us? Yes. And the biggest twist in all of this with the punishment is people tend to view, they look long term. So if you're familiar with church, and a lot of people turn off by church because for as long as we can remember, there's this concept, we see it all over there. There's good and evil, heaven and hell. And some people think, well, God's going to punish me by ultimately, if I don't get things right, sending me to hell. And so if you start from that premise, the truth of it is God's not punishing you. God's giving you two options. You're going to choose the option. So this idea of God punishing us, I think sometimes it's easier for us. We would rather say that than look at something or be honest with ourselves and saying, okay, is it more of a punishment, or am I dealing with my bad decisions, or am I dealing with the results or consequences of my choices, good or bad?
I got it. But this still to me, and I think a lot of people, they were going to think as, what is the point of doing good things? Like, so what's the point? And I look at this way, right? Raising kids. For people that have kids, they can relate to this. Or growing up, you can relate to this because you can see it. As a parent, we operate with our kids in a trade mode. So I tell my boys, hey, if you do this, if you get good grades, if you do the things I'm asking you to do, here's a reward for you. I'm going to give you something that you like. We're going to go have the ice cream you've been asking for. If you do something bigger than that, something really, you go above and beyond.
Clean out the bunny's cage.
Exactly, clean out the bunny's cage.
Yeah.
Man, that's a battle. There we go. We go. It's like here's something for you.
Yeah.
And I really don't think our relationship with God is that different than this relationship I have with my kid. He's our Heavenly Father. That's the kind of relationship He wants with us. He created us. But on that point, it's different. See, I grew up, you grew up, and we're raising our kids under this idea that there's a reward for good behavior. But God doesn't seem to operate under the same guidelines there. Is that true? Or are we looking at this wrong?
Yeah, I think what you're kind of touching on there is there's why would we do good things? Or a common idea people hear is being obedient to God, doing what God says. And there's a difference when we do good things or we do what God says. There's a difference in it coming from a place of, I'm going to do good things. I'm going to do what God says because I love God, versus I'm going to do what God says because I want something from God. And that's where I think it goes back to how we're raised. One of the things we talked about yesterday with this idea of performance, like people in church think, okay, the better I perform my Christian duties or the Christian act, the better I perform that, the better my life's going to be. And God doesn't operate that way at all.
Christians think that they have job reviews meeting with God.
They wouldn't say it, but that's how we act. Like you hear, because I said something, people sometimes will, if life's getting crazy and you'll run into someone, a common conversation I'll have, if I run into people that I know that maybe they went to church here or whatever and start talking about things, they start talking about life, is a lot of times if life's not where they want to be, they may throw in a comment like, man, I gotta get back in church. I gotta get back in church. Almost implying that, well, if you show up for 4 weeks in a row, guess what? God's gonna fix all those problems. And as far as I know from my time of being in church, studying the Bible and how God operates, I don't find that anywhere in the Bible, but it's a kind of like a common idea people have.
Okay, but listen, then I think I heard this before in church. People say, if you're faithful in your giving, God will be faithful to you. Is that the same thing? That sounds to me that it's an exchange.
Yeah, it's an exchange. It's like there's
But is that true though? Is that how it works?
No.
If I start giving financially to the church faithfully, can I expect something bad from God, back to me, that benefit me?
Some people may say during tax season you get a giving statement back, but I don't think that's what you're going for. But no, that's the thing of that's what's hard for people to understand is the way God is with us. It doesn't, you can't, no matter how good you are, it's not going to make God love you more. And no matter how bad someone says you are, or how you're like, man, I'm just doing a bunch of bad things. It's not going to make God love you less. Like, it's just there, it's consistent. But it's hard for us to understand that, because typically people that are good to us, we like them more. We may love them more. People that aren't good to us, don't do a lot of good things, we tend to, our tolerance for them tends to drop. And we're like, yeah, I don't have anything to do with you.
Well, I think that's real. We actually do that, right? I think in reality, we choose people based on, which again, I think again, I don't want to. I hate negative people. I don't hate people. I just don't like negative people around me. I hate negativity. I don't want to.
I mean, you're a people person.
I'm a people person. I mean, 2 years in a row, most relational guy on the staff. I mean, I got the trophy. I can show you. I mean, my producer just gave me a little mug, says from Mikey Scott from The Office. What the best boss? That's like my office. I mean, I got 2 staff members now that gave me that. So
didn't you win the 2021 Barnabas Award for the greatest encourager?
I mean, that's me. I am that guy, right? So, I don't like to be around negative people. I just don't like it. I don't feel like I have time during the day to be negative or to think of negative things. That doesn't mean that doesn't happen though, but I try to avoid that. So I don't want to be around it. I if there's negative conversations, I try to stay away from it. But how is that? I mean, those are the choices that I make, right? But does that make me less like God for being that way? I mean, am I not like? Do you think the people that home or in the office, the people that are listening to this right now, do you think they got to measure who they hang out with and realize, well, if God doesn't, love people less because the choice they make, that means I have to now tolerate people that I mean, in a practical level, what that looks like.
Well, first off, people that are listening to this, they deserve an extra star in their crown. So congratulations on that. You're going to have a bigger mansion in heaven than Joey and I. I think the thing with people and who you hang out with is, I always try to be careful of drawing too many direct correlations from how God operates to with how I operate. Because the truth is, there's some people that I could hang out with or spend time with that there's nothing good that comes from it. I think today we talked about hard choices. And one of the things we were talking about today, it was staff meeting with hard choices. And I mean, it was, you want to talk about a great conversation. Everyone was just, they were talking, sharing. It was one of those, it was a life-changing meeting.
I know. People like to talk on their staff.
It's amazing. And talking about the hard choices. And so when you think about hard choices, sometimes one of the hardest decisions to make is to, people will sometimes go through and they'll clean up their friends lists you'll see on social media apps. Some of us in life, we need to clean up who we spend our time with, because there's certain people that it's just the investment isn't worth it, because as much as we think, well, if God can do this, if I'm around these people, you don't like it with negative people. So if you're around negative people and all of a sudden that starts rubbing off on you and starts impacting you or affecting you, I mean, the easiest solution for it is to stay out of those situations.
It's kind of interesting, just to contextualize. We have Bible study with the staff every Monday morning. So we are going through the book Creatures of Habit right now, and it's a great book. It's really it's a great book. It's I think we're learning a lot from it. But let's flip this conversation, because we're talking about we're talking about the bad things that happen to us. Some of those things, we create those things. Some of the things we don't know where they come from. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back. We're going to flip the situation. It's official. CC Life Plus has launched, and we truly feel blessed to be able to reach people in and through the new way of online living. What makes CC Life Plus even more special and better all around is that it is for everyone. This platform has kids' content, content for students, podcasts, music, and traditional content to help you grow as Christians. So there really is something for everyone on here. We hope you have had a chance to check it out. If not, please do. We'll be adding new material monthly and we'll post on the social media channels when we do, so make sure to subscribe and follow our social media channels so you know when new content is released. Oh, that's awesome. We're back, Brad. And we're just talking
What a
about
day.
barbecue.
Yeah, we were. Yeah.
We got to do a podcast just on that, though.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts we can do. I mean, I'm not opposed to it.
You're not opposed to it?
No. Especially with some of that cheese that you grill out on some skewers,
the Brazilian
man.
grilled cheese. That's so good.
I'll be on that like Russ and a pump handle.
Okay. We're going to write a book about all your like quotes.
Oh, yeah.
The Brad Wilson quotes.
Yeah, it'd be probably 3 pages.
We
but
can
it'd be
put
so
we
good.
can put the title of the book, Wilson 316. We gotta bring those T-shirts back though.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is, if you have those and you're not going here anymore, I kind of like it back.
It's okay, so that's the public announcement. If you don't come here anymore, you still have the T-shirts. Please return. I know, right? I mean, people. Some ownership on that.
Yeah,
That's a symbolism of
yeah. It might be great symbolism, but hey, man, at least helps the bottom line for us. There may be a couple of those floating around in the Dominican Republic.
Oh, probably.
That and raised a spear.
I mean, you're the greatest mission pastor ever, right? I mean, we know that.
Yeah, I wouldn't. I don't. That's probably a little bit of an inaccuracy right there.
No, just say it. I mean, you loved it.
I mean, I kind of look at it as, in the NFL, they say, and we'll probably talk about this. There's something in the works.
There's
the
something
pigskin
cooking.
pastures.
Yeah, that's exactly. Let's before we jump back into our conversation let's talk about that a little bit. You're not. This is your first podcast, but not the only one. There's something else coming up, right?
Yeah, this is like, it's like I feel like a little bird. I just got booted out of the nest. When am I going to fly? Who knows? But right now we're heading.
Just like this the first 3 minutes of the podcast, you already dropped another quote. Look at that.
Who knows? Who knows? But yeah, this pigskin pastors.
Pigskin pastors.
Yeah. So our producer, a man of many talents, Jeremy Braley.
Oh man.
Who I love that he loves football. So we talk about that, and I mean, we represent probably the 2 greatest franchises in the NFL. The Bengals, obviously, should have won the Super Bowl. They get a little blocking. Boom, Jamar Chase, Tutty. And the Detroit Lions, who we may be down, but we're not out.
See, I was so glad you said all that, and I had no clue what you just said.
I mean, World Cup's coming.
I'm from
so
Brazil, buddy.
I know the World Cup's coming. We're going to be ready for
soccer. Like, we don't talk this, like, pigskin stuff, but I'm glad you guys are.
Yeah.
Because I don't know any church pastors actually talking about football. Do you know of any?
I know a lot that do, but they don't know what they're talking about.
Oh, there we go. There we go. Here's the warning.
Yeah, they do, but they don't know what they're talking about. I mean, we may not know completely what we're talking about, but trust me, we've got a game plan.
Okay, so I don't know much about NFL at all, but we are recording this. I heard there's a thing called drafts, NFL drafts coming up. Is that a real thing?
Yep.
Okay, so I know that they pick players from college, right? Is that it? To play on a professional football.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. I learned that lesson. I watch. What's the movie with Kevin Costner? The draft day. Is that it? That's it. I watched that movie. I thought it was a great movie. I learned that was my crash course on draft. Like, it's right there. That's how much I know. That's how much I know about the draft.
You ready to go then? Yeah.
So that happens this week.
Yep.
What's the chances for the Bengals right now to actually do something good for themselves?
I think the chances are high because for the first time in a long time, the Bengals are picking from a position of luxury. They've shored up their offensive line. They've got arguably one of the best young quarterbacks in the NFL. The receiving core is as good as skill positions. They're solid. I mean, so the Bengals, unlike my Lions, who we got a lot of rebuilding to do, the Bengals are just adding to already a strong roster.
So there you go. People got a little taste of what they're going to hear from you, right?
Yeah.
You guys, because I'm telling you, for somebody who does not like NFL or the football, you can see how much what I feel when I walk in the hallways of this church during the week. And some of you, that's all you guys talk about. But that's okay. It's a free country. You guys can do whatever you want. You can always do that. That's totally fine. So I'm going to let that go. Because I'm a nice guy. Again, like I just said, I'm a nice guy. I'm the most relational guy on the staff. I get that. So that's who I am.
Yeah.
I'm just going to let it go and let you guys do your thing. But hey, everybody, Pigs Can Pastors coming. You guys already have social media accounts, I heard. So I know you guys are all ready to go. Guys, you start following on social media. Follow guys on social media. These guys they're going to rock the sports arena with this thing. What are you sports guys going to talk about? Just football, or there are other sports?
You know, there's an old saying that circulates around a lot of VBSs, and that is where God guides, He provides. And that's
number 4, people. Number 4 in this podcast.
That's how we're operating with this.
That's number 4 right there.
But we probably should get into temptation before.
I know. Let's talk about. Let's go back.
Right?
No, let's go back to it.
I've derailed us.
That's okay. That's what we do during the week.
Right?
True. That's what we do when we talk. There's some like off ramp.
Yeah, that's why I got that little room, my study, where I close the door. That's when.
Okay, so let's reverse the whole conversation. Like we're having this conversation about bad things happen to us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and they really do. In all of us, I think sometimes people think, oh man, these guys are pastors. They got all this thing figured out. Nothing happened to them, or they can handle everything. Man, it's not like that at all. Things happens to us, and sometimes we got our own question marks that we actually got to go to God and say, hey, what's going on here? But let's we talk about bad things that happen to us. Some things we provoke those bad things. Some things just happened.
Yeah.
But is it possible that God tempt us? Is it possible right there that some of the things that happen in your lives is God actually doing the temptation or putting the temptation in our lives? Is that real?
No. God will never tempt us. I mean, the short, easy answer is God will never tempt us. God will. That's what we kind of talked about yesterday. There's a difference between testing and temptation. So God, who is not associated with evil, there's nothing evil about God. God will never tempt us. What's interesting is that people, when it comes to the tempting, is what James in this letter, what he writes. And what he to the recipients of the letter and to us today. What's interesting when throw people for a little bit of a loop is what the Bible teaches us on this tempting thing, and that is that because we tend to think, well, if it's okay, you're like, all right, Brad, I get it. God doesn't tempt us, but the devil tempts us or someone out. But what James is talking about is in the first chapters. He's saying, here's the thing with temptation. That is on you guys. Like, you guys are the ones that, as us as people, we lead ourselves into temptations, which we don't often think of. We tend to think, well, something is causing this. And it's like James says, yeah, you're the cause for your temptations.
Okay, so let's unpack that a little bit more. Because how exactly it's me... how does unpack that a little bit more? How am I the one do I allow the temptation, or do I actually create the temptation?
Well, for some clarification, this whole theme comes out of starting in verse 13. It says, when tempted, no one should say, God is tempting me. Going back, can God tempt? For God cannot be tempted by evil, nor does he tempt anyone. But then in verse 14 it says, but each one is tempted when by his or her own evil desire. So it's our desires, what James in the Bible saying here, it's our desires that are the ones that start us down that road or lead us into temptation.
Is there any desire that becomes a temptation?
I think so. And then the thing with desires is we may read that and think, well, desires are bad. Well, that's not the case. We have good desires, we have bad desires. But
What makes a desire bad in my life? What is it? How can I identify when something that I desire is bad for me?
well, I mean, you can start.
Is that like, for example, do you think it has to do with pride? I have a desire that actually brings pride into my, like, it puts me first.
I think it's the with these desires because what we see there is like a process. It's almost like the end result of the desire. Like there's nothing wrong with like going back to we talked about family and talk about our kids is we want to teach our kids to be productive, to be successful. And so having that desire of I want to be successful in my job is a good thing, right? But if the desire comes to the pride piece, maybe what you're getting at, if the desire is I want to be the best in my job, so I can let everyone know I'm with and I'm better than them, and everyone I work with knows that man, this guy's the best and he's way better than us. It to me it's kind of that end result of like what's really the motivating
And
force
what do you
behind
do
it.
to get there, right? Because
Yeah.
if for me to be the best in my job, I have to step in someone's head, then I'm doing something wrong here, right? I mean,
Right.
evidently I'm doing something wrong, but that reveals that desire goes above and beyond what God really wants for
Yeah.
me because I'm putting that first. And I think in every aspect of life that can be true. At work, at school, in our family relationships, the things that we do to be first because of our own personal desire. So I think for people to be able to identify, because sometimes we say desire, good desire, bad desire. What is bad about me wanting to have a better job? What is
Yeah.
bad for me to want a better paycheck? What is so bad for me to want to succeed? What's so bad for me to actually make a name for myself?
Right.
And those things, I think, in itself, they don't look bad, except what do you do to get up there?
Yeah.
So I think, and I mean, that's nothing wrong with making a lot of money. There's nothing wrong with being successful. There's nothing wrong with being in evidence or something that you did and be recognized for something you did. I think what takes you to get to that point and the choices that you make to get there is reveal your character. And I think your character end up being the big evidence of your walk with God. I think today we don't associate our character to God's character,
Yeah.
right? So I think sometimes we like to, when things go wrong in our lives, if we're believers, if we're Christians, we like to blame God for not being there for me, and or we're so devoted to Christ, or we feel that way that we like to say, "Oh, God is just testing me." Is there that's a good point right there. Like for you, is temptation and tests same thing? Does God test us?
Yes.
So evidently, temptation and testing, those are different things.
Yeah. So, and sometimes it gets confusing for people is some of the words in the Bible they read and like, okay, there's some similarities, but the difference with like if you're tested on something, think back to a simple. We talk about some. That's one of the things of life in the zone tested, right? So if you're testing a process or you're testing something, you're looking to see, okay, in this process, if what I have is this good, is this going to stand up to what's going to be required of it, and if I put this in place, is it going to work? And so sometimes for us, when it comes to this testing is it allows us to have an accurate viewpoint of where our faith is at, how strong it is, maybe how weak it is, and this kind of illuminates what where we're lacking or what we need to improve on. Where when you get to the temptation brings about, because it's kind of an interesting pathway it goes down in the Bible, but temptation's about bringing sin or bringing something bad into our life.
So let's talk about. Let's look from this angle. Money is a good thing,
Right.
right? We need
Right.
money. We need money to buy things. We need money to have things. We need money to eat, to feed ourselves, feed our families. But money can be a source of temptation in our lives,
Right.
right?
Right.
So for me, is I wanna have more money. I wanna be able to succeed financially. How what mechanisms do I need to have in my life to desire to have money in my bank account and add more, multiply that money without becoming a temptation in my life?
Well, I mean, that's a that's a good question. It's a pretty broad question. I mean, I think a lot of it comes. The starting point for that is, like you said, there's nothing wrong with it, but it what some of it stems down to, or if you break it down, is okay from the money standpoint of what's the driving force behind it. What are you doing to accumulate that, and what are you leaving in the wake of that process? And we talked today about this idea of God and the idolatry, and Kyle Idleman talks about in his book God's at War about God having a seat at the table, being on the board, and his point was he's not a board member. God is the board, and so sometimes what happens with that is from a financial standpoint or a quest, you see people get in trouble with money all the time. The accumulation of it is then we may be dishonesty creeps into the situation. Sometimes we don't care who we hurt or run over to get it. It's just if we're focused on just accumulating that stuff, and the way to accumulate it isn't honest, isn't legal, it just becomes the driving force. That's when it kind of opens the doors for us to get ourselves into a bad situation or place that we want to, or we don't want to find ourselves in.
Okay, on that note, like before we close, talks about a little bit this fall. You're going to talk about money.
Yeah.
Like it's good for the church to get some heads up here. That's how far we plan.
Yeah.
Right. So we have these conversations. It's so good to be in this environment where we collaborate together. We talk about what's coming. We plan things together for the church, and you know that you really want to talk about money this fall. And let me just go ahead and say, this is not about talking about giving more money to the church. But what angle are you coming this fall to talk about money?
We're coming from the angle of, I think all of us want to have more financial freedom and be more stable financially. So we're going to approach it from the mindset of our goal isn't that we're going to tell you, hey, this is what you need to do for the church, but we want to share with you some tools on how you can be in a better place financially. And we're going to kind of talk about a breakdown of it that if we follow this plan and this breakdown, will help all of us just be in better spots financially, so we can do the things that for some of us said we've wanted to do, we wish we could do, but that's an important thing for us, is just share with the church, here's some tools so you can do a better job of financially having some freedom and feeling like you're able to take care of your family and just getting yourself in the best place financially that you can be.
That's great. Well, dude, thank you for the time. I mean, we're going to be back here having these conversations, having these great moments. I think we need. I'm going to talk to Jeremy. Jeremy's our producer, and this room has no coffee, no water. There's nothing for us here to really like. The VIP treatment's really like in the down low. To be quite honest with you, we gotta fix this thing, cause we need the right setting.
Yeah, unless this is the MIP treatment, most invaluable podcasters. That may make sense.
I know this is like we've got to up your game, Jeremy, and let's make sure we got the stuff here that we need, man. I mean, come on.
But I appreciate Jeremy. I appreciate him.
He's a good guy.
He's a good guy.
He's doing a great job on Sundays. He's doing a good job with his team. He's a great guy. Always positive.
And he's a member of the Pigskin Pastors.
Oh, Pigskin Pastors. I mean, it's coming. Now, listen, we're gonna be back. We're gonna have these conversations more and more. This is just the first one. We want to be. I think the heart of this is just to be honest in these conversations and to be open. And if you want you to kind of jump in this conversation back again, always join us through CC Life Plus. It's a great website with a lot of content for everybody, for the entire family. I think CC Life Plus is going to be great. For us, it's going to last a lot longer than CNN Plus. But I think it's going to be great. And it's going to be too soon. I mean, that thing just crashed and burned a month. I think if we get 45 days, we can say we're more successful than CNN. That's great. So I think it'll be fun. We're going to have these conversations. We're going to laugh a lot. We're going to, I'm not sure if we're going to cry, but we'll
probably not.
Probably not. But we'll laugh. That'll be fine. That's okay. I appreciate you guys being here. We're going to keep doing this thing. We're going to keep talking until somebody tells us to stop. We're good. See you next time.
Thanks for joining us this week on Let's Talk Podcast. Make sure to check us out at ccliveplus.com, where you can listen to past episodes and subscribe to the show in iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast platforms. And one more thing. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a rating on iTunes and tell someone about the show. Until next time.